Naomi Brooks did not raise her voice when a white neighbor accused her daughter of stealing. She did not beg the store manager to believe her. She did not let anyone touch her child's pockets. She only asked one question: which camera catches that mirror? 1 hour later, the woman who called a black child a thief was the one clutching her tote bag. Watch till the end. My husband was smiling before we even turned onto Hawthorne Lane. That was what I remember most. Not the white fences, not the lawns cut so evenly they looked brushed instead of mowed, not the rows of maple trees standing along the sidewalks like someone had measured the distance between every trunk before planting them. I remember Caleb's smile. He had one hand on the steering wheel, the other tapping lightly against his knee, the way he always did when he was trying not to show how happy he was. The moving truck followed behind us, with half our life boxed inside it. The other half sat in the back seat beside our daughter. 2 stuffed animals, a backpack with one broken zipper, a plastic container of peanut butter crackers, and the little pink blanket Lily still refused to admit she needed at night. "Look at that yard," Caleb said, slowing the car as if the whole street had been built for him to admire one house at a time. "Baby girl, you see that? That's enough room for a swing." Lily pressed both palms against the window. "A real swing? A real swing," he said. "Not the kind at the park where we have to wait for somebody else to finish. Your swing." Her mouth opened a little, the way children do when the future arrives faster than they expected. "And flowers?" she asked. "As many as your mama lets us plant." I looked at him from the passenger seat. "As many as your daddy agrees to water." Caleb laughed. It filled the car. That laugh had carried us through cheaper apartments with thin walls, through winter mornings when his work boots were still wet from the night before, through grocery lists where I circled things and then uncircled them because the light bill had come in higher than expected. It had carried us through 5 years of him taking every overtime shift he could, without making Lily feel like she was being raised by his absence. Now that laugh was moving with us into a house with a porch. A real porch. Caleb had talked about it for years, like other men talked about boats, vacations, or retirement accounts. A place to sit after dinner. A place where Lily could draw with chalk. A place where I could drink tea before the day started asking things from me. He had wanted a front porch because his grandmother had one. He had wanted a yard because he never had one. He had wanted a house where his daughter could open the door without hearing another family's argument through the wall. So I did not say what I noticed first. I did not say that 3 people had paused on the sidewalk before pretending they had not paused. I did not say that a woman in a blue visor stopped watering her flowers when our car turned in. I did not say that, on the second house from the corner, a white curtain moved, then stilled. A wife learns when to speak. A mother learns when not to. Caleb had saved for this joy. I was not going to be the one to take the shine off it before he even put the car in park. "Mummy," Lily said, still looking out the window, "is that our porch?" Caleb eased the car toward the curb. The house came into view slowly. Cream siding, green shutters, a little cracked stone path from the driveway to the front steps. A porch wide enough for 2 chairs, and maybe, if Caleb got his way, a small table where he could put coffee he would forget to drink, while fixing something he said would only take 10 minutes. There was a maple tree in the front yard, not large, but old enough to have earned the right to shade something. "Yes," I said, "that's our porch." Lily turned to me. "For always?" Caleb's tapping stopped. I heard it because I had learned the language of his hands. He kept his eyes on the house, but something in his jaw shifted. Not sadness, not fear, something deeper. The kind of feeling a man has when a child asks if the good thing is allowed to stay. "For as long as we take care of it," he said gently. Lily nodded like that made sense. To her, love and care were the same as ownership. Maybe that was how children should be allowed to understand the world for as long as possible. The moving truck hissed behind us. A dog barked once from somewhere down the block, then stopped. That silence after the bark felt strange to me. In our old neighborhood, dogs kept going. People shouted back at them. A bus groaned around the corner. Somebody played music too loud. Somebody laughed from a window. Here, even the noise seemed to know. It was supposed to behave. Caleb turned off the engine. For a moment, none of us moved. He looked at the house through the windshield, and I watched the side of his face. He looked younger right then, not because the years had left him, but because something he had carried for too long had finally been allowed to sit down. "We did it," he said. He did not say it loudly. That made it heavier. I reached across the console and placed my hand over his. His fingers were rough from work. One knuckle had a small scar from the winter. He fixed the loading dock door at the warehouse because the repair company could not come until Monday, and his supervisor had said, in that way supervisors say things, that somebody had to keep operations moving. Caleb had always been somebody. Somebody who stayed late. Somebody who lifted what needed lifting. Somebody who smiled so other people did not have to see how tired he was. "Yes," I said. "We did." Lily had already unbuckled herself. "Can I see my room?" "You can see it after we help your mother carry in the important things," Caleb said. "My stuffed animals are important. They are critical," he said. She grinned. I opened my door and stepped out. The air smelled like cut grass and laundry vents. Somewhere nearby, someone was baking something with cinnamon. The sidewalk was too clean, the street too quiet. I could hear the moving men climbing down from the truck behind us, the metal latch rolling up, the scrape of cardboard shifting against cardboard. Across the street, the white curtain moved again. This time, I looked directly at it. It stopped. I smiled anyway, not because I felt welcome, because I had been raised by people who taught me that dignity should arrive before fear had the chance to arrange your face. Caleb came around the car and lifted Lily into his arms, even though she was getting too big for it. "Daddy," she said, squirming, but not trying very hard to escape. "I can walk." "I know, so why are you carrying me?" "Because first steps into a new house are special." She accepted that. He carried her up the cracked stone path like he was carrying a queen into a kingdom made of mortgage paperwork, overtime, and faith. I followed with Lily's backpack and the plastic folder where I had placed every document from the closing: inspection papers, appliance notes, utility transfer forms, the final signed page that said the house was ours, in language cold enough to hold up in court. A man in a red windbreaker walked past with a small white dog. Caleb lifted his chin. "Morning." The man hesitated half a second too long, then he nodded. "Morning." His eyes went to the moving truck, then to Caleb, then to Lily, then to me. He kept walking. Caleb did not seem to notice. Or maybe he did and chose not to give it a place to land. That was one of the things I loved about him, and one of the things that scared me. He believed people could be better if you gave them room. I believed that too. But I had also learned that some people took the room you gave them and used it to stand taller over you. Inside, the house smelled like old wood, lemon cleaner, and closed-up rooms. The previous owner had been an elderly woman named Mrs. Darlene Alvarez. We had never met her. She had died 6 months before the sale, and her sister had handled the closing through the agent. The house had been cleaned, but not emptied completely. A few things remained in the kitchen cabinets, the garage shelves, and the narrow pantry beside the back door. The agent had called them leftover household items. Caleb called them first blessings. I called them things I needed to photograph before anyone could later claim they had never been here. Not out loud. I had a gift for not saying certain thoughts too quickly. The living room had sunlight on the floorboards. Lily spun once in the middle of it, then stopped because the room echoed. "It sounds big," she whispered. "That's because it is big," Caleb said. It's not that big, I said, looking at the water stain near the ceiling and the scratched baseboards. To us it is, he said. He was right. The movers brought in the couch first, then the mattress, then the kitchen boxes. Caleb directed them with the polite intensity of a man who had measured every doorway twice in his head. Lily ran from room to room, narrating discoveries as if she were reporting from a country no adult had ever seen. There's a tiny shelf in my closet. There's a bird nest outside the window. The bathroom has 2 sinks. Caleb looked at me when she said that last one. 2 sinks, he said, as if he had personally delivered civilization. I laughed, despite myself. For a while, I let the day be good. I let it be boxes and tape, and Caleb pretending he did not need help lifting things. I let it be Lily, choosing which corner of her room would belong to her stuffed rabbit. I let it be the way sunlight moved across the kitchen counter around 2 in the afternoon, warm and gold, touching the old tile like the house had been waiting for someone to notice it kindly. Then I opened the lower cabinet beside the stove. Inside were dishes. Not many, but enough to make a story. A stack of mismatched plates, 3 cloudy glass jars, a chipped blue mixing bowl, a bundle of silverware tied with a faded rubber band, 2 casserole dishes, an old kettle with a dent near the handle, a yellow teacup with a hairline crack near the rim, and 1 small chip at the base. Lily saw the cup before I touched it. "Oh," she said. She reached past me with both hands, careful in the way children become careful when they have already decided something is precious. "It's broken," I warned. "It's not broken," she said. "It's just old." Caleb leaned against the doorway, wiping sweat from his forehead with the bottom of his t-shirt. "That cup looks like it came with a grandmother," he said. "Maybe it did," Lily said. She held it up to the window. Light passed through the yellow glaze and made her fingers glow. Something in my chest tightened. Not because of the cup itself, it was cheap, probably from a set that had lost the rest of itself years ago, the kind of thing people left behind because wrapping it took more effort than replacing it. But Lily looked at it like she had found treasure in the first house that had ever belonged to us. "Can I keep it?" she asked. I almost said yes immediately. Then I thought of all the things still in the cabinets, all the objects that had histories we did not know, all the ways people could look at a black family in a new house and decide the objects inside it needed defending from them. "We'll put it aside for now," I said. Caleb caught the tone. Just a little. His smile softened, but he did not question me in front of Lily. That was another language between us. Later, when the movers had left, and the house was full of boxes shaped like future chores, Caleb found the note taped inside the pantry door. It was written in careful cursive on yellowing paper. For the new family, Darlene wanted anything left in the kitchen or garage to be used, donated, sold, or loved. You please don't feel burdened by what remains. A house should begin light. No signature, but the agent had mentioned the sister. Caleb read it twice. "See?" he said. "First blessings." I took a picture of the note. Then I took pictures of every cabinet, the dishes, the silverware, the lamp in the garage, and the clay pots, the curtain rods, the old coffee maker, the tools on the shelf, the box marked holiday with a cookie tin inside. The little things people forget are still valuable once someone accuses you of taking them. Caleb watched me from the kitchen table. "You documenting or decorating?" "Both," he smiled, but not as wide this time. "You worried?" I looked toward the front window. The house across the street had white curtains. They were closed now. "I'm careful," I said. He came behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. His palms were warm, heavy, familiar. "We're not in the old place anymore," he said. "I know. This is different." I looked at our reflection in the darkening kitchen window. Him tall behind me, me still holding my phone. both of us standing in a house we had earned and had not yet learned how to relax inside. I hope so, I said. He kissed the side of my head. That was Caleb. He heard the part I did not say and chose tenderness instead of argument. After dinner, which was pizza, eaten on paper plates because we could not find the box with the real ones, Lily placed the yellow teacup in the center of the kitchen table. "What is that doing there?" I asked. "It's for the porch sale." Caleb looked up. "Porch sale?" She nodded. "We have too many old things, and Daddy said we need to meet neighbors, so we can sell them. And this can hold the money." I started to say no. Then I saw Caleb's face. He loved the idea. Not because of the money. There was not enough in those cabinets to change anything serious. The mortgage still sat somewhere in my folder, like a sleeping animal. The moving costs had already bitten harder than expected. The water heater had made a sound that afternoon I did not trust. But Caleb saw something else. A table on the lawn, neighbors stopping by, Lily counting quarters, people learning our names the ordinary way. He saw belonging. I saw risk. Both of us were right. "That's not a bad idea," he said. Lily beamed. "I can make signs." "After you unpack your toothbrush," I said. But she groaned, as if I had asked her to build the house herself. Caleb laughed again, and for the second time that day, I decided not to ruin his joy with my caution. So I nodded. "One small sale," I said. "Saturday morning. Nothing fancy." Lily lifted the yellow cup carefully. "It's going to be the cash cup." "The cash cup," Caleb repeated, very serious. "Official business." Lily marched off with it like a banker carrying gold. I watched her go. Then I looked again at the front window. The house across the street was mostly dark now, except for one upstairs room. A figure stood behind the curtain. Still, waiting. I did not tell Caleb, not that night. He had worked too hard to sleep in this house with peace in his heart, so I let him have it. I washed the paper plates. I folded the pizza box. I placed the closing folder in the drawer nearest the stove, where I could reach it quickly if I ever needed to. Then I stood alone in the kitchen, listening to my daughter laugh upstairs as Caleb tried to assemble her bed frame without reading the instructions. The yellow teacup sat on the counter beside me, small, chipped, bright, a thing someone else had left behind, a thing my daughter had already claimed. Outside, somewhere across Hawthorne Lane, a curtain moved again. This time, I did not smile. I picked up my phone and took one more picture. By Saturday morning, Caleb had turned the front porch into proof. Not a garage sale. Proof. 2 folding tables stood beneath the maple tree. The brass lamp sat in the center like it had been promoted. Beside it were the blue mixing bowl, 2 casserole dishes, chipped mugs, cloudy glass jars, a dented kettle, curtain rods, clay pots, garden shears, a wicker basket, an old hand mixer, and the silverware bundle tied with a faded rubber band. Lily placed the yellow teacup at the front of the table. "The cash cup," she announced. Caleb bowed like she had opened a bank. The official cash cup. I watched her set 3 quarters inside it before anyone had bought anything. The sound was small and bright. "Remember," I said, "nobody touches that cup except us." "Because it has money? Because it's yours to watch." Caleb glanced at me. He heard the sentence beneath the sentence, but he did not challenge it. That was one of the quiet mercies of our marriage. He knew when my caution had a history. The morning began kindly. An older man asked about the garden shears. A woman with silver hair bought 2 clay pots. A teenager looked at the curtain rods and decided they were too short for a dorm window. Caleb smiled at everyone, as if each conversation laid one more brick in the life he had imagined here. For a little while, I let myself believe it. Then the white SUV came down Hawthorne Lane. It slowed before our house, rolled past, turned at the corner, and came back. Caleb saw it, so did I. The driver parked directly in front of our lawn, though there was space across the street. The door opened, and Marjorie Whitcomb stepped out carrying a canvas tote printed with the Hawthorne Garden Committee logo. She was a broad, heavy-set white woman in a pale pink blouse and pressed navy walking pants, her white sneakers too clean for a woman arriving at a yard sale. Her blonde grey bob sat stiff around her face, sprayed into place. Soft cheeks, sharp pale eyes, a smile that moved before the warmth did. She crossed our grass instead of the stone path. That told me something. "Good morning," Caleb called. "Well, good morning," she said. "You must be the new family." "The new family, not the Brooks family." Caleb still offered his hand. "Caleb Brooks. This is my wife, Naomi. And that's Lily, running finance." Lily lifted 2 fingers. Marjorie took Caleb's hand lightly, as if she were accepting something she had not wanted to touch for long. "Marjorie Whitcomb," she said. "I'm just across the street." Lily looked up. "The Curtin house?" The air tightened. Caleb gave a small cough. Marjorie's smile held, but her eyes moved to me. "Children notice everything," I said. "Yes," Marjorie replied. "They certainly do." She turned to the tables. "My goodness, you've been busy." "Previous owner left some things behind," Caleb said. "We figured we'd clear space and meet folks." Marjorie picked up one cloudy jar, turned it in her hand, and set it down in a different place. Lily noticed. So did I. "How much for the lamp?" "15, Caleb said. "It works." Marjorie gave a soft laugh. Not loud, just enough for the silver-haired neighbor near the curb to look over. 15. "It's a solid lamp. I'll give you 2. Caleb thought she was joking. 2. Cash. "That's helpful," I said. "But the lamp is 15. Marjorie removed her sunglasses slowly. For the first time, I saw the full weight of her looking. Not anger. Not yet. A woman like Marjorie did not begin with anger. She began with measurement. "Well," she said, placing the lamp down, "I only asked because these things were left here, weren't they?" "They were," I said. "So it's not as if you paid for them." The sentence arrived softly. That made it worse. A jogger slowed near the corner. A woman across the street opened her mailbox and did not take anything out. The silver-haired neighbor held her clay pots a little closer. Caleb's smile changed. I saw it happen. That hurt more than Marjorie's words. The previous owner's family left these items with the house, I said. And they gave written permission to use, donate, sell, or keep them. How convenient. I took my phone from my pocket. I have a photo of the note. Marjorie's eyes flicked to the phone, then to the people watching. That won't be necessary. I don't mind. I said it won't be necessary. Her left hand tightened around the tote strap. The rings pressed into her fingers. I noticed that hand. Marjorie moved to the silverware bundle. "How much for these?" $8, I said. "For used utensils?" "For the bundle." She lifted it. Forks and spoons clicked together. Lily flinched at the sound. "I'll give you $1. "No, thank you. It's just going to sit here. Then it can sit." Marjorie smiled toward the jogger, as if inviting him to share the joke. "I suppose everyone prices things differently. Some people see old leftovers and think profit." Heat moved up my neck. For 1 second, I saw my father's hand turning his pocket inside out under fluorescent lights. I saw a clerk looking through him while I stood beside a basket of screws and batteries, too young to understand why a good man had become so quiet. Then the porch came back. Caleb was watching me. I placed my hand flat on the table. "Mrs. Whitcomb," I said, "you're welcome to buy anything at the marked price. You're also welcome to leave it for someone else. But we won't lower the price, because you've decided these things mean less, once they belong to us." The street went still. Marjorie's smile thinned. "I didn't mean anything by it. I know what you said. That's not the same thing." "No," I said. "It usually isn't." She set the silverware down closer to her tote than to the table. I moved it back. Our eyes met. For a breath, the soft neighbor mask slipped. Then Lily held up the old cookie tin. Do you want this? It's mystery price. Caleb almost laughed. How much is mystery price? Marjorie asked. $3, Lily said. But if you like mysteries, $2. The silver-haired woman smiled. The jogger looked away, embarrassed to be caught watching. The pressure around the porch loosened by 1 small inch. Marjorie did not smile. She opened the tin, saw it was empty, and snapped it shut. I think I'll pass. The sound made Lily's shoulders lift. That was enough. I stepped between Marjorie and the table. Not dramatically, just enough to change the space. Mrs. Whitcomb, if you want something, I can wrap it for you. If not, we have other neighbors waiting. There were no other neighbors waiting to buy, but there were neighbors watching. That made the sentence true enough. Marjorie looked past me at Caleb, as if expecting him to correct me. He did not. My husband stood beside the porch steps with one hand on Lily's chair. His face had lost its morning brightness, but not its dignity. I was only trying to be neighborly, Marjorie said. Then we appreciate you stopping by. I would hate for there to be confusion about Darlene's belongings. There isn't, and yet you're selling them. Because her family said we could. May I see that in writing? No. The word came out plain. No decoration. Marjorie's eyes sharpened. Behind her, the silver-haired woman finally spoke. I knew Darlene's sister, she said quietly. If she said they could sell the things, then they can sell the things. Marjorie did not turn around. That made the woman shrink a little. I noticed. So did Lily. Marjorie picked up the brass lamp again. I'll give you 5. The lamp is 15. You may want to make friends here, Mrs. Brooks. There it was. Not advice, a price. Caleb stepped forward once. My wife told you the price. His voice was gentle. That made it stronger. Marjorie held the lamp 1 second too long, then put it down. I can see this isn't a good time. It's Saturday morning, I said. It's a fine time. Her left hand gripped the tote strap again. Then she reached toward the yellow teacup. Lily's hand shot out first. That's mine. Everyone heard it. Not because she shouted, because truth from a child does not know how to perform. Marjorie froze, fingers inches from the cup. Oh, sweetheart, she said. I was only looking. She said it's hers. I said. I heard her. Good. Marjorie put her sunglasses back on. The performance was over. Not because she had been corrected. People like Marjorie did not receive correction. They stored it as debt. She looked over the tables once more. I do hope everything here is handled properly, she said. Caleb answered before I could. It is. She gave him a pitying look, then crossed our lawn back to her SUV. Her tote brushed against her hip. Her left hand held the strap tight the whole way. I watched that hand. I do not know why. Maybe because she had spent the morning inspecting ours. The SUV door shut. The engine started. She sat there for a moment, facing our porch, sunglasses reflecting our house back at us. Then she drove away. The street moved again. The jogger jogged. The woman at the mailbox finally checked mail that had not arrived. The man with the terrier walked on. The silver-haired neighbor came back and placed $3 near Lily's cup. For the cookie tin, she said. Lily blinked. You like mysteries? The woman smiled sadly. Sometimes. She took the tin, then looked at me. I'm sorry about that. There are many kinds of sorry. Some are apologies, some are confessions that the speaker saw enough to know they should have done more. I nodded. Thank you for buying the tin. After she left, Caleb began straightening the table too quickly. The lamp, the jars, the price stickers, anything his hands could fix. I touched his wrist. Hey, I'm fine, he said. I didn't ask. He looked toward the street. She talked like we stole the morning. The sentence stayed with me because it was exact. I looked at the porch, at Lily's yellow cup, at the tables Caleb had arranged with so much hope. She wanted us to defend joy like it was evidence, I said. He did not answer. The sale continued, but its innocence had been spent. By noon, half the items were gone. Lily carried the cash cup inside to count her profits on the kitchen floor. Caleb brought empty boxes back to the garage. I stayed outside to fold the tablecloth and check what remained. That was when I saw the silverware bundle. The rubber band had slipped loose. Forks, spoons, 2 butter knives. I counted once. Then again. The small serving spoon with the floral handle was gone. I stood very still. Across the street, Marjorie's SUV sat in her driveway. Her curtains were open. No one stood behind them. Caleb came back out with an empty box. "What is it?" I picked up the bundle and turned it in my hand. The missing spoon was not expensive. That was why it mattered. Small things were easy to take. Small things were easy to deny. "Naomi?" I took out my phone and opened the photo from before the sale. There it was. The floral spoon, visible beside the forks. Then I looked at the table again, gone. Lily appeared in the doorway, holding the yellow teacup with both hands. "Mummy, can we use the money for cookie stuff?" Caleb looked at me, not in front of her, not yet. I lowered the phone. "Yes," I said. "Cookie stuff." Lily smiled. The cup caught the afternoon light. For a second, it looked whole. I smiled back, because she needed me to. Then I opened a note on my phone and typed, "Saturday, 10:18 a.m. Marjorie Whitcomb left porch sale. Floral serving spoon missing." I saved it. I did not know then that the spoon would matter. I only knew the woman who had asked whether we had the right to sell what had been left behind had walked away with something that did not belong to her. And somewhere across the street, behind clean windows and white curtains, she had already begun deciding what kind of story she would tell about us next. The first rumor did not use our names. That was how I knew it had been written by someone careful. Sunday morning, while Caleb was in the yard trying to understand why the sprinkler only worked on one side, my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. "Welcome to Hawthorne Lane Community Board." Caleb had joined the neighborhood app the night before with the optimism of a man who still believed information was the same as welcome. He had handed me his phone after dinner and said, "Look, they post about lost dogs and block parties." He had smiled when he said it. So I had smiled too. Now the newest post sat beneath a photo of someone's hydrangeas. Just a friendly reminder that garage sale items should be verified before being sold, especially when they may have belonged to a previous resident. We all want to preserve the trust and character of Hawthorne Lane. No names, no address, no accusation. That was the shape of it. A knife wrapped in a napkin. I read it once, then again. The poster's name was Marjorie W. Her profile picture showed the same stiff blonde-grey bob, the same pale blouse, the same soft cheeks arranged around eyes that did not soften. She was standing beside a charity table with one hand on a donation basket and the other gripping the strap of that garden committee tote. I took a screenshot. Then I made coffee. That was one of the things my mother taught me, without ever saying it directly. When someone tries to pull you into panic, do one ordinary thing first. Wash a cup, fold a towel, put water on for coffee, remind your body that you still live inside your own house. Caleb came in through the back door 5 minutes later, with wet shoes and grass on his sleeve. "I fixed the sprinkler," he said. Water sprayed high against the kitchen window behind him. He looked over his shoulder. "Mostly." Lily laughed from the table, where she was sorting $8.75 into piles of quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. "We're rich," she said. "Dangerously," Caleb said. I set his coffee down. He noticed my face before he noticed the phone. "What happened?" I turned the screen toward him. He read the post, standing by the sink, one hand still holding the screwdriver he had taken outside. His smile did not disappear all at once. It folded inward. Maybe she means generally, he said. I waited. He looked at the screen again, then at me. She didn't say us. She didn't have to. Lily looked up. Who didn't say us? Caleb put the phone face down. Grown-up neighborhood stuff. Lily made a face. That sounds boring. It should be, I said. But it wasn't. By noon, the post had comments. Most were harmless on the surface. Good reminder, always best to check. People forget how sentimental old belongings can be. One woman wrote, "I'm sure the new residents meant well." Meant well. That phrase stayed with me longer than it deserved. People used meant well when they wanted to forgive you for something you had not done. Caleb read the comments after lunch and set the phone down gently, as if placing it harder would admit it hurt. I can reply, he said. With what? The truth. The truth is already available. He rubbed one hand over his face. Then why does it feel like we're the only ones holding it? I did not answer. Outside, a lawnmower started 2 houses down, then another. Hawthorne Lane performed Sunday like a ritual. Trimmed grass, washed cars, porch flags moving in the warm air. Everything neat. Everything loud enough to cover what no one wanted to say directly. That afternoon, an email came from the HOA. Subject: Friendly Neighborhood Guidelines. It reminded all residents that yard sales should not obstruct sidewalks, that signage should be removed promptly, and that personal property transfers were the responsibility of the homeowner. Again, no name. Again, hours. Caleb read that one standing in the hallway. This is normal, right? He asked. He was not asking because he believed it. He was asking because he wanted permission to keep believing something else. I walked to the drawer beside the stove and took out the closing folder. Inside, behind the inspection papers and utility forms, I had placed the note from Darlene's sister. For the new family, Darlene wanted anything left in the kitchen or garage to be used, donated, sold, or loved. I had printed the photo that morning. Caleb stared at it. She really wrote that, he said. Yes. So why do I feel like we're asking for permission? That was the first time I heard anger under his hope. Not much. Just enough. I reached for his hand. We're not asking. He looked toward the front window. Across the street, Marjorie Whitcomb stood on her porch, talking to 2 women. She wore a cream cardigan despite the heat, her broad body planted squarely in the center of the steps. She did not lean, she did not hurry. She let the women tilt toward her. That was power too, the kind that did not need an office. Her tote hung from her left arm. When one of the women glanced toward our house, Marjorie lowered her voice. I could not hear the words. I saw the effect. Both women looked at our porch, then away. Caleb stepped back from the window. She's really doing this, he said. Yes. Over a lamp? No, I said. Not over a lamp. Lily came into the hallway holding the yellow teacup. She had washed it herself and dried it with a dish towel too big for her hands. Can I keep this in my room now? I looked at the cup, the small chip at the base, the hairline crack near the rim, the bright yellow glaze that made it look cheerful even when empty. Of course. She held it against her chest. Mrs. Whitcomb wanted to touch it. Caleb's face changed. I crouched so Lily did not have to look up to be believed. She did. Why? Some grown-ups think wanting something means they can reach for it. Lily considered that. But it was mine. Yes. Because I said? Because it was in your hands. She nodded slowly, then looked past me toward the window. Does she think our house is hers too? The question landed harder than any comment on the app. Caleb turned away. I stayed crouched. No, I said. She does not get to think that. But what if she does? I had no quick answer that would not teach her fear too early, so I gave her the truest small thing I could. Then we remind her. That evening, while Caleb assembled Lily's bookshelf upstairs, I sat at the kitchen table and made a timeline, Friday arrival. Saturday garage sale. 10:18 a.m. Marjorie left. Floral serving spoon missing. Sunday community board post. Sunday HOA email. I attached photos. The full silverware bundle before the sale. The bundle after. Darlene's note. The screenshot of Marjorie's post. It felt excessive. Then I remembered my father, under fluorescent lights. He had not stolen anything that day. A pack of screws had been found under the counter later, after the clerk had made him empty his pockets in front of everyone. No one apologized loudly enough for the room to hear. My father had paid for what he came to buy, and walked out holding my hand too gently. That was the part I hated most, not the accusation, the gentleness afterward, the way he had tried to protect me from knowing what had happened by shrinking himself. I would not let Caleb shrink. I would not let Lily learn that silence was the rent we paid for peace. A knock came at the back door just before sunset, not the front. That mattered. When I opened it, the silver-haired woman from the sale stood on the small step, holding a folded paper bag. "I'm Elena Alvarez," she said. Darlene was my sister. For a second, the day rearranged itself around her. I opened the door wider. "Mrs. Alvarez, Elena is fine." She looked past me into the kitchen, not nosy, just remembering. "I meant to come sooner. It's strange seeing someone else here. I can imagine." She gave a small smile. "No, you can't, but that's all right. I liked her for that." She handed me the paper bag. "Found a few more recipe cards in my car. They were Darlene's. I thought your little girl might like the cookie one." I took the bag carefully. "Thank you." Elena's eyes moved to the table, where my printed screenshots lay in a neat stack. She did not pretend not to see them. "Marjorie always did like owning the story before anyone else could tell it," she said. I looked at her. "She has done this before?" Elena adjusted her purse strap. "Different ways, small ways. Enough that people decide it's easier to let her speak first." That was not an answer. It was a warning wearing the clothes of neighborhood manners. "Did your sister leave those things for us?" I asked. Elena's face changed, softened, but not weakly. "She did," Darlene said. "A house shouldn't greet a new family empty." She paused. "She would have liked your daughter." I felt my throat tighten and did not let it show. "Would you be willing to say that if someone asks?" Elena looked toward the front of the house, as if she could see Marjorie through walls. Then she nodded. "Yes." After she left, I placed the recipe cards beside the yellow teacup. Lily came down and found them there. "Are these for us?" "Yes." "From the old house lady?" "From her sister." Lily touched one card with one finger. "So she wanted us to have things?" I looked at Caleb, who had stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "Yes," I said. "She did." For the first time that day, Caleb smiled without forcing it. Then my phone lit again. Another notification from the community board. Marjorie W. had commented under her own post. And in these situations, it is especially important that children learn respect for what belongs to others. No names, no address, no proof, just one clean sentence, placed where everyone could see it. Lily was still looking at the recipe cards. Caleb was still holding the small screwdriver from the bookshelf. I turned the phone face down before my daughter could read it, but not before I took the screenshot. Caleb took Lily to Miller's Market on Monday because he wanted the house to smell like cookies. That was how he said it. Not because we needed sprinkles, not because the pantry was empty, not because the porch sale had left our daughter quieter than she should have been. Cookies. A simple word. A father's solution. "We break in the oven tonight," he said, standing in the kitchen with his keys in one hand and Lily's yellow teacup in the other, because she had asked him to rinse it. First official Brooks family cookies in the new house. Lily looked up from the recipe cards Elena Alvarez had brought over. "Can we make the yellow kind?" "There are yellow cookies?" "There are if we buy yellow sprinkles." Caleb looked at me over her head. I knew what he was doing. He was building a bridge back to ordinary. The neighborhood board post was still there. Marjorie's comment about children was still there. The HOA email sat in my folder, printed and dated. The missing spoon remained missing, but Caleb did not want Lily's first memory of Hawthorne Lane to be a woman reaching for her cup and a street turning quiet. He wanted flour on the counter. He wanted the oven light on. He wanted his daughter to believe a new house could still be sweet. So I handed him the shopping list. Sprinkles, vanilla, butter, porch light bulbs, and picture hooks. I said, "Picture hooks? You said we were hanging family photos." He smiled. That I did. Lily grabbed her small denim jacket from the chair. I almost told her to leave it. Then I stopped myself. A mother should not have to teach a child to dress for suspicion before leaving for baking supplies. Still, as Caleb opened the front door, I said, "Stay with Daddy." Lily gave me the patient look children reserve for adults who say obvious things. I know. Caleb heard the worry under the words. He stepped closer and kissed my forehead. "We'll be right back." I wanted to say something useful. Watch the aisles. Keep receipts. Don't let anyone separate you. Don't let anyone make her empty her pockets. Instead, I said, "Call me if you need me." He held my eyes for 1 second longer than usual. Then he nodded. Miller's Market sat 4 blocks from Hawthorne Lane, tucked between a dry cleaner and a small hardware shop that sold mulch in the spring and snow shovels in winter. It was not large enough to be anonymous. That was the problem with it. In a big store, no one knew anyone. In Miller's, everyone knew exactly who they had already decided to believe. Caleb told me later how the bell above the door rang when they walked in. Lily liked that part. She said it sounded like the store was saying hello. The first person to look up was a young clerk at the register. Thin, pale, maybe 19, brown hair falling into his eyes. Name tag, Evan. He was feeding receipt paper into the machine with hands that looked too nervous for such a small task. "Morning," Caleb said. Evan smiled quickly. "Morning, sir." Not unfriendly. Not warm either. The smile of someone trained to be polite before he knew whether politeness would cost him. Caleb took a red basket from the stack. Lily walked beside him, one hand holding the shopping list like a map. The store smelled like coffee grounds, floor cleaner, and cardboard. The front section had produce, flowers, and greeting cards. The middle aisles held baking supplies, cereal, canned soup, light bulbs, batteries, tape, nails, and the kind of small household things people came in for when they did not want to drive 20 minutes to a big store. On the wall near the entrance hung a community bulletin board. Lost cat, piano lessons, church rummage sale, HOA safety meeting, and there, near the top, a smiling photo of Marjorie Whitcomb, standing beside a donation table, both hands on a basket labeled Winter Coat Drive. Lily saw it first. "Daddy," she whispered, "that's the lady from the porch." Caleb looked. The smile in the photo was the same one she had brought to our lawn. Soft cheeks arranged into kindness, pale eyes looking straight at the camera, hair sprayed into a blonde-grey helmet, a garden committee badge pinned to her cardigan like a medal. Caleb's hand tightened around the basket handle. "Come on," he said gently. "Sprinkles." He did not take the photo down. He did not say what he wanted to say. He walked his daughter to the baking aisle. That was how restraint looked when no one applauded it. Lily forgot Marjorie for almost 3 minutes. She chose the yellow sprinkles first, then changed her mind because the rainbow ones had stars inside. Caleb told her they could get both if she promised not to decorate cookies like fireworks had exploded on them. She promised nothing. They were comparing vanilla prices when the bell above the door rang again. Caleb did not turn right away. Lily did. Her shoulders moved before the rest of her body. That is what he told me later. Not that she was scared, that her shoulders knew before her face did. Marjorie Whitcomb entered Miller's Market, carrying the same canvas tote. In daylight, under store lights, her size became part of the way she commanded space. She did not rush. She did not need to. She was a broad, heavy-set woman who moved as if aisles should widen for her, her pale blouse pressed smooth across her chest, her rings flashing when she lifted one hand toward the register. "Evan," she called. The young clerk straightened. "Morning, Mrs. Whitcomb. Is Harris in?" "Yes, ma'am." "Office." "Tell him I'm here, will you?" Not a question. Evan nodded and reached for the phone behind the counter. Marjorie had not yet looked toward the baking aisle, but her left hand had already tightened on the tote strap. Caleb noticed. Lily noticed. Caleb noticing. "Daddy?" "It's okay," he said. He picked up the vanilla and placed it in the basket. Marjorie turned then, as if she had only just discovered them. Surprise arrived on her face too cleanly. "Well," she said. "Good morning." Caleb gave her a polite nod. "Mrs. Whitcomb." Lily moved closer to his leg. Marjorie's eyes dropped to the basket. Sprinkles, vanilla, picture hooks, 2 porch light bulbs, a pack of AA batteries. "How domestic," she said. Caleb did not answer. Marjorie reached toward the shelf beside Lily and picked up a small roll of yellow ribbon from a display of baking decorations and gift wrap. "Planning another sale?" "No," Caleb said. "Cookies." Lily found her voice. "For our house." "How nice." The words were harmless. The tone was not. Marjorie set the ribbon down, but not where she had picked it up. She placed it near the edge of the shelf, closer to Lily's hand. Caleb saw it. He moved the basket between Lily and the display. Marjorie smiled as if he had overreacted. From the front of the store, Evan watched. He was still holding the phone. His eyes moved from Marjorie's tote to the small goods rack near the register, where lip balm, batteries, keychains, and greeting cards hung in tight little rows. Then he looked down. A man came out from the office behind the counter. Harris Miller was in his late 40s, with a store apron tied over a button-down shirt and a name tag polished from habit. He had the tired face of a man who wanted every problem to become a transaction. "Marjorie," he said. "Everything all right?" She turned from Caleb slowly, letting the question gather weight. "I hope so." Harris glanced toward Caleb and Lily. The glance was quick, too quick to be neutral. Caleb placed the vanilla in the basket with care. Lily held the shopping list in both hands. "I was just noticing," Marjorie said. "We had a little situation on Hawthorne Lane this weekend." Harris's mouth tightened. "Situation? Oh, nothing official, just some questions about belongings. You know how these things are." Caleb turned fully now. "What things?" Marjorie looked at him as if she had hoped not to involve him. That was part of the performance. "Mr. Brooks, no one is accusing anyone." The sentence again, "No one is accusing anyone." It always came right before accusation put on its shoes. Lily looked up at her father. "Daddy, can we get the star sprinkles?" Caleb looked down at her. Yes. He reached for them. At the same moment, Lily picked up the yellow ribbon Marjorie had moved. Not to steal it, not even to buy it. Children pick up bright things because the world still belongs to their eyes. She looked at it, smiled a little because it matched the teacup, then set it back on the display. Marjorie's eyes followed the motion. Her left hand tightened around the tote strap. Evan saw it. This time, he did not look away fast enough. Marjorie turned her head toward him. His face went blank. That was when Caleb understood the store had a history he did not know. He put the star sprinkles in the basket. "Come on, baby," he said. "We have everything." They walked toward the register. Marjorie followed a few steps behind, not close enough to be accused of following, close enough for Lily to feel the air behind her change. At the counter, Evan began scanning. Sprinkles, vanilla, butter, light bulbs, picture hooks, batteries. His hands moved quickly, but the scanner missed twice. "You all right?" Caleb asked quietly. Evan nodded too fast. "Yes, sir." Marjorie stood near the small goods rack. Her tote hung open against her hip. Harris remained at the end of the counter, watching the transaction as if he had been asked to supervise something delicate. Lily reached into the basket for the yellow sprinkles. "I want to hold these." "After we pay," Caleb said. She put them back. A normal child, a normal correction, a normal Monday morning, if people had allowed it to be one. Marjorie leaned toward Harris. "I don't want to make trouble," she said. Harris closed his eyes for half a second. That was the face of a man who knew trouble had already chosen him. "What is it?" "I saw the little girl put something away very quickly in aisle 3. Caleb went still. Evan stopped scanning. The butter sat in his hand, barcode facing down. Lily looked from Marjorie to her father. "I put the ribbon back," she said. Her voice was small but clear. Marjorie smiled sadly. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm sure that's what you meant to do." Caleb placed his hand on Lily's shoulder. "What exactly are you saying?" he asked. "I'm saying," Marjorie replied, "given the concerns this weekend, it may be best to make sure nothing accidentally ended up where it shouldn't." Harris shifted his weight. The woman in line behind Caleb took one step back. Not far. Enough. Caleb saw it. So did Lily. Evan looked at the register screen like it might save him. "Mrs. Whitcomb," Caleb said. "My daughter didn't take anything." "I hope not." "She didn't." "Then there should be no problem clearing it up." There it was. Clearing it up. The phrase people used when they wanted obedience to sound like cooperation. Harris cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, not meeting Caleb's eyes fully. "We just need to clear something up." Lily's hand tightened around the shopping list. Caleb looked at the manager, then at Marjorie, then at his daughter, who had come to buy yellow sprinkles for cookies in her new house. His voice stayed low. "Call my wife." Caleb called me with 5 words. "Naomi, store, Lily. Come now." That was all. No explanation, no panic, no raised voice. That was how I knew it was bad. My husband was a man who could describe a broken pipe, a flat tire, and a bleeding thumb with the same calm voice he used to ask for salt. But there was something underneath those 5 words that made me leave the kitchen without turning off the light. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and the folder from the drawer beside the stove. Not the whole closing folder, just the thin part I had started carrying without telling myself I was carrying it. Darlene's note, the garage sale photos, the screenshot of Marjorie's post, and the picture of the silverware bundle before the spoon went missing. A woman learns what kind of paper might one day have to stand beside her. Miller's Market was 4 blocks away. I drove there, in less than 3 minutes, and remembered none of the turns. The bell over the door rang when I entered. Everyone looked. That was the first thing I noticed. Not Caleb. Not Lily, the room. A woman near the greeting cards held a carton of eggs against her chest, and stared as if she had been interrupted during something private. A man by the coffee display looked down too quickly. The young clerk behind the register stood with one hand still on a stick of butter. The manager, Harris, stood at the end of the counter with the stiff posture of someone hoping authority would arrive before responsibility did. And Marjorie Whitcomb stood beside the small goods rack with her canvas tote open against her hip. Broad, still, comfortable. Her pale blouse sat smooth across her chest. Her blonde-grey bob did not move when she turned her head. Her smile was small enough to deny later. Her left hand held the tote strap, rings pressing into thick fingers. Lily stood beside Caleb. She was not crying. That made me angrier. Children should not have to become composed before adults become fair. Caleb's hand rested on her shoulder, not gripping, guarding. His eyes met mine, and for 1 second the store disappeared. I saw only the thing he was trying not to show our daughter, fear that if he defended her too loudly, the room would punish him for the volume instead of listening to the truth. I walked to them, not fast. Fast gives people a story. I placed one hand on Lily's back. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Did anyone touch you? Another shake. Her hands were curled around the shopping list. The paper had bent soft where her fingers held it. I looked at Caleb. He said, "They're saying she took something." They? I asked. Marjorie stepped forward before Harris could speak. No one is saying it quite like that, Mrs. Brooks. I turned to her. That is exactly how he said it. Her smile held. I'm only concerned. About what item? The question landed clean. Marjorie blinked once. The child was acting suspiciously. What item? Harris cleared his throat. Ma'am, we just want to clear up a possible misunderstanding. I looked at his name tag. Harris Miller? Yes. You're the manager on duty? Yes. Good. What item is missing? He glanced at Marjorie. That was answer enough. We're not sure anything is missing, he said carefully. Lily looked up at me then. Her eyes were dry, wide, and searching. Mummy, I put the ribbon back. I know. I didn't take it. I know. Marjorie gave a soft sigh. Sweetheart, sometimes little hands forget. Caleb's jaw tightened. I felt Lily's body shrink under my palm. That was when I stopped looking at Marjorie and looked at Harris. Do not speak to my daughter like she has confessed to something. The store went quiet. Harris adjusted his name tag. Mrs. Brooks, no one wants to upset the child. Then stop treating her like a suspect before you can name what was stolen. The woman with the eggs looked away. Marjorie's voice sharpened beneath its sugar. If nothing happened, why are you so opposed to a simple check? There it was, the sentence that made humiliation sound reasonable. A simple check. A simple pocket turned out. A simple backpack opened. A simple child learning that her body could become public property because a grown woman had a feeling. I looked at Marjorie's tote, then back at her face. Who is checking whom? Her eyes cooled. I beg your pardon? You're asking for a child to be searched in public. I'm asking what policy allows that. Harris shifted. We wouldn't search her exactly. What would you do exactly? He looked at Caleb, then me, then the people watching. We would ask her father to help us verify. Caleb spoke for the first time since I arrived. No, one word, low, enough. Marjorie turned slightly toward the room. See, that is what worries me. If this were innocent, it is innocent, Caleb said. Then cooperation would make everything easier. I heard the trap close around the word cooperation. If Caleb refused, he was difficult. If he allowed it, Lily was shamed. If I objected, I was making it about something bigger. People like Marjorie built cages out of polite choices. I opened the folder. Not wide, just enough. Harris, do you have an incident form? He paused. An incident form? For a theft accusation involving a minor. This is not an accusation. Then we're done. Marjorie's face tightened. Harris held up one hand. Let's all take a breath. I'm breathing, I said. I'm also asking you to decide whether this is official enough to document or vague enough to end. Evan's hand moved on the butter wrapper. A small crinkle of foil. I looked at him. He looked down. Fear has a sound when it moves through a room. It is not loud. It is the receipt printer stopping. It is a clerk not breathing. It is a manager choosing the familiar customer because challenging her would cost more than challenging the new family. Harris said, Mrs. Whitcomb saw your daughter put something away quickly in aisle 3. My daughter says she returned a ribbon. That may be. Then check the shelf. Evan spoke before anyone expected him to. The ribbon is there. Everyone looked at him. He swallowed. I saw it, yellow ribbon. It's on the display. Marjorie turned slowly. Evan. His name in her mouth was not a call. It was a warning. The boy's face went pale. Harris looked irritated now. Not at Marjorie, but at Evan, for complicating the direction the room had been moving. That doesn't mean there wasn't another item. What other item? I asked. No one answered. Lily whispered, "Do I have to give back the house too?" The room changed. Not much. Enough. The woman with the eggs lowered them from her chest. The man by the coffee display finally looked up. Evan's mouth opened, then closed. Caleb closed his eyes for half a second, like the sentence had struck somewhere he could not protect. I crouched beside Lily. "No," I said. "You do not. But she keeps saying things don't belong to us." I did not look at Marjorie when Lily said it. I looked at Harris. Because he was the institution in the room, not the loudest wrong, the one deciding whether wrong became procedure. "My daughter came here for sprinkles," I said. "Not a lesson in being publicly suspected. Pull the camera footage." Harris hesitated. "Mrs. Brooks, pull it." Marjorie let out a short laugh. "You can't possibly expect a store manager to stop operations because your child was asked a reasonable question." She was not asked a question. She was positioned as guilty. That is your interpretation. That is your method. The words left my mouth before I softened them. Marjorie's smile disappeared. Only for a second, but enough for me to see the face beneath it. Offended, not innocent. Harris lifted both hands. "All right, we can review the front camera." "Not just the front," I said. He frowned. "Aisle 3. The aisle camera doesn't always show the full angle. Then we start with what you have." He looked at Marjorie. Again, I let him see me notice. Finally, Harris motioned toward the office. "Caleb, Lily, you can wait here." "No," I said. Harris stopped. "My daughter does not wait alone in the place where she was accused. My husband stays with her. I'll review the footage with you." Marjorie stepped forward. "I should be there too. I'm the witness." "You are the accuser," I said. Her chin lifted. Harris looked trapped. "Mrs. Whitcomb can stand outside the office door." "No," I said. "She can stand where everyone can see her." A few eyes moved to Marjorie's tote. Not many. Enough. For the first time, she pulled the tote closer to her body. Harris noticed. Not fully, but the first crack in a room often begins as almost nothing. The office was small and smelled like paper, coffee, and old carpet. A monitor sat above a filing cabinet, divided into 4 camera feeds. Register, entrance, aisle 2, aisle 3. The footage rewound in choppy jumps. Harris worked the mouse too slowly. Outside the office, I could see Caleb through the open doorway. He had crouched in front of Lily, speaking to her quietly. She nodded, still holding the shopping list. Evan stood behind the register, hands flat on the counter, watching nothing and everything. "Timestamp?" I asked. Harris gave me a look. "Approximately 12 minutes ago. Exact timestamp." He sighed and found it. Aisle 3 appeared on the screen. Caleb and Lily entered the frame. Lily held the list. Caleb held the basket. Marjorie stood at the far end of the aisle with her tote. I felt my stomach tighten at the sight of her, behind my child. Lily picked up the yellow ribbon. She looked at it. She smiled. She set it back on the display. The footage showed that clearly. Harris said nothing. I watched Caleb place himself between Lily and Marjorie without making it obvious. I watched Lily choose sprinkles. I watched Marjorie touch something near the small goods side display, then step partly out of frame. "What did she touch there?" I asked. Harris paused the video. "It's hard to tell." "Zoom. This system doesn't zoom much. Try." He tried. The image blurred. Marjorie's tote was visible at the edge of the frame. Her left hand moved. The angle cut off before it showed where the hand went. Harris leaned back. "Well, it clearly shows your daughter returned the ribbon." "Say that again?" He looked at me. "It shows she returned the ribbon." "Good. Write that down." His mouth tightened. From outside the office, Marjorie called, Does it show everything? I turned. She was standing too close to the doorway. Her tote was pressed against her left side. It shows enough to clear my daughter, I said. Marjorie's eyes narrowed. That is not the same as showing nothing happened. I stepped out of the office. The whole store watched again. This time, I let them. You accused a 9-year-old child without being able to name a missing item, I said. The shelf item you implied she hid is still on the shelf. The camera shows her putting it back. The manager has confirmed that. Harris appeared behind me, uncomfortable with being converted into truth. I said the footage shows the ribbon was returned. He muttered. Caleb stood. Lily moved closer to his side. Marjorie spread her hands. The gesture looked generous until you saw how little it offered. Then I'm glad it was resolved. Resolved. As if harm ended when evidence arrived. No, I said. It was not resolved. It was interrupted. The word settled. Evan looked up. I saw it then, the convex security mirror at the end of aisle 3, round and slightly scratched, reflecting the blind corner the camera had missed. I had seen mirrors like that my whole life, in stores, in laundromats, in places where owners watched poor people too closely and still missed the ones they trusted. I pointed toward it. What camera catches that mirror? Harris followed my finger. The back aisle camera, maybe, but it's mostly for stockroom traffic. Pull it. Marjorie's left hand tightened hard around the tote strap. This time, Harris saw it. So did Evan. So did I. Marjorie smiled. But the warmth never arrived. Mrs. Brooks, she said, don't you think you've done enough? I looked at my daughter, at the shopping list crushed in her hand, at my husband's face, trying to remain gentle in a room that had almost taught his child shame. Then I looked back at Marjorie. No, I said. I think we've just started. Harris did not want to pull the second camera. That was the first useful thing he told me without speaking. His hand stayed on the mouse. His eyes went once to Marjorie, once to the store window, once to the people pretending not to watch. A manager's fear is different from a thief's fear. A thief fears being seen. A manager fears admitting what he already allowed to happen. The back aisle camera is not really for customer incidents, he said. Then today, it can become one. Marjorie gave a small laugh. Not the soft neighborhood laugh from our porch. This one had a thinner edge. Mrs. Brooks, the ribbon was returned. Your daughter is fine. Surely we don't need to turn a child's mistake into a town hearing. Caleb's voice came from behind me. My daughter did not make a mistake. Everyone looked at him. He stood with Lily tucked against his side, one hand resting on her shoulder. His face was controlled, but I could see the work it cost him. There was a muscle in his jaw that only moved when he had more anger than room to place it. Marjorie looked at that muscle. I saw her see it. She wanted it. She wanted the raised voice, the step forward. The moment she could point to and say she had been right to worry. Caleb gave her nothing. He only looked at Harris. Pull the camera. Harris swallowed. Then he turned back to the monitor. The second feed loaded slowly, jumping in squares of grey, before the picture settled. Back aisle, stockroom door, a rack of paper towels, a strip of the ceiling, and at the far edge of the frame, the convex mirror above aisle 3. Round, small, scratched, useful. The reflection was warped, but it held the part the first camera had missed. Harris rewound. No one spoke while the footage moved backward. People are very quiet when a room begins to understand that evidence may not choose the side they expected. On the screen, Lily and Caleb moved in reverse. Marjorie drifted backward out of the aisle, then back into it. Her tote shifted against her hip. The yellow ribbon leapt from the shelf to Lily's hand, then returned to the display. Harris stopped at the timestamp. Play at normal speed, I said. He did. There we were, watching my child from above like strangers. Lily picked up the ribbon, looked at it, smiled, put it back, clear. Then the mirror showed Marjorie's left hand. Not well, but enough. Her broad body blocked part of the shelf from the main camera, but the mirror caught the angle from above. She looked toward Caleb, then toward the register. Then her left hand moved from the small goods rack to the opening of her tote. A small flat package disappeared. The movement was quick, practiced, not panic, habit. Harris froze the footage without meaning to. The office air changed. I looked at him. Keep playing. Marjorie's voice came from the doorway. This is ridiculous. No one answered her. That was when she became louder. I said, this is ridiculous. You can't identify anything from that. Harris still did not move. His face had gone slack in the way people look when the truth arrives before their courage does. I stepped closer to the monitor. What section is that? Evan answered from the counter, before Harris could stop him. Batteries. His voice cracked on the word. Everyone turned. Evan looked as if he wished the floor had opened and chosen him kindly. Marjorie's head turned slowly toward him. Evan. Again, his name was not a name. It was a hand around the back of his neck. He gripped the edge of the counter. The AA 4-packs are there, he said. End of aisle 3, under the ribbon display. Marjorie's smile returned, but now it had to climb over something. How helpful. Perhaps you should check whether any are actually missing before implying things. I looked at Harris. Do that. He hesitated. Harris, I said, you were willing to let a 9-year-old be checked without naming a missing item. Now you have a timestamp, a camera angle, and a specific shelf. Check it. The sentence embarrassed him. It was meant to. He stepped out of the office and walked toward aisle 3. Evan followed halfway, then stopped. The woman with the eggs shifted to see. The man by the coffee display no longer pretended to shop. Caleb pulled Lily closer. She whispered, Mummy, I'm here. Did the camera see me? Yes. Did it see I put it back? Yes. Her lips pressed together. Then why is everybody still looking? That question had no gentle answer. Because some people need proof twice when they expected guilt once. Because a child can be cleared and still be wounded. Because rooms do not always know how to return dignity after borrowing shame. I said only, because grown-ups are slow sometimes. She nodded as if that explained enough. Harris came back holding one AA battery pack. His face looked worse than before. How many should be there? I asked. He did not answer. Evan did. 6 on a full peg. We stocked it this morning. Harris looked at him. Evan stared at the counter. There are 5. Marjorie inhaled sharply. That proves nothing. Customers move things constantly. No one said it proves everything, I said. But it proves you named my daughter before checking the shelf beside your own hand. Her face hardened. The softness left her cheeks first, then her mouth. Without the smile, Marjorie looked less like a concerned neighbor and more like what she was, a woman used to standing in the center of rooms until the room mistook her confidence for truth. She adjusted her tote strap. For the first time, the gesture looked like fear. Harris set the battery pack on the counter. Mrs. Whitcomb, he said carefully, would you mind if we just... No. The word cut through the store. Everyone heard it. A moment earlier, she had wanted Lily's pockets checked to make things easy. Now her own tote had become sacred ground. The room noticed. Not enough to speak. Enough to shift. Harris looked trapped again. Marjorie saw it and softened her face with effort. I am not going to be treated like a criminal because I raised a concern about a child behaving oddly. Caleb's voice stayed low. You raised a concern after moving the item near her. Marjorie turned. I beg your pardon? I saw you move the ribbon. The store went still again. He had said very little until then. That gave the words weight. You picked it up, Caleb continued. You put it closer to my daughter. Then when she touched it, you watched her like you were waiting. Marjorie's eyes narrowed. That is an ugly accusation. Yes, he said. It is. No one missed the meaning. Lily leaned into his leg. Harris rubbed his forehead. We need to slow down. We needed to slow down before you cornered my child, I said. He looked at me then, really looked, and something like shame crossed his face. It did not redeem him. Shame is only the first step toward decency, and some people stop there because it already feels expensive. I apologize if she felt cornered, he said. If? The word came out before I could decide whether to spend it. He looked at Lily. She looked away. That answered him better than I could. Evan moved from behind the counter. I should have said something earlier. Marjorie snapped toward him. About what? His hands were trembling. He hid them against his apron. Naomi, I told myself. Let him find his own door. So I did not rush him. I did not say, tell us everything. I only asked, earlier today. He shook his head. No, ma'am. The store seemed to shrink around him. Harris said, Evan. That warning was quieter than Marjorie's, but not kinder. The boy looked at his manager, then at Lily. That was what decided him. Not me. Not the footage. A child who had almost been searched because he stayed quiet too many times. It's not the first time small things went missing when Mrs. Whitcomb was here, he said. Marjorie laughed. Too quickly. That is absurd. Evan kept going, though his face had gone red. Lip balm. Greeting cards, batteries, ribbon once, little things. Are you accusing a customer because you're embarrassed you mishandled this? Harris asked. There it was, the system defending itself before the truth could finish speaking. Evan flinched. I turned to Harris. Careful. He looked at me. That young man is the first employee in this store to say out loud what your camera already started saying. Choose your next sentence carefully. Harris's mouth closed. Marjorie's pale eyes fixed on me. This is harassment, she said. No, I said. Harassment is what happened to my daughter before there was evidence. This is review. Her hand went again to the tote. I did not ask to search it. Not yet. That mattered. If I demanded a public search of her bag, she would make the scene about revenge. She would make herself the victim of the same thing she had tried to do to Lily. I would not give her that symmetry. Instead, I looked at Harris. I want 3 things. He looked exhausted. Mrs. Brooks. 1. A written incident report stating my daughter was accused, the item was identified as ribbon, and the footage shows she returned it. Harris swallowed. 2. Preservation of both camera feeds from today. Marjorie stepped forward. You have no right. 3, I said, not looking away from Harris. A written note that no employee or customer is to request a search of my child or any minor in this store without a parent present, a named missing item, and camera review. Harris stared. That's not our current policy. I know. The silence after that was not empty. It was full of what almost happened. Lily's pockets, Caleb's anger, Marjorie's smile, Evan's fear, Harris's hesitation. A yellow ribbon returned to a shelf, and still not enough until the store saw itself on a screen. Marjorie adjusted her blouse, then her tote, then her face. You are making this much larger than it needs to be. I looked at her then, really looked. At the stiff hair, the clean sneakers, the broad body planted in the store like furniture that had always been there. The tote pressed close now, no longer casual. The rings cutting little pale grooves into her fingers. You did that, I said. A sound came from Lily, not a sob, something smaller. I turned immediately. She was holding the shopping list in both hands. The paper had torn at the top. Can we go home? She asked. That was the end of the scene for me. Not the evidence. Not Marjorie. Not Harris. My child asking to leave a store where she had come to buy sprinkles. Caleb lifted the basket from the counter. "We're paying for what we came to buy," he said. Harris looked startled. "You don't have to." "Yes," Caleb said. "We do." He placed each item on the counter himself. Sprinkles, vanilla, butter, porch bulbs, picture hooks, batteries. The batteries sat there longer than the others. Everyone saw them. Evan scanned the items. His hand shook less this time. Caleb paid. He kept the receipt. Then he picked up the grocery bag and held out his other hand to Lily. She took it. At the door, the bell above them rang again. This time, it did not sound like hello. It sounded like a witness. I stayed behind long enough to watch Harris write the first line of the incident report. Marjorie had not moved. Her face was composed again, but her tote was clutched too close for the room to forget. Evan looked at me. Very quietly, he said, "There are inventory logs." Marjorie's eyes flashed toward him. Harris stopped writing. I folded the receipt Caleb had handed me and placed it in my folder. "Then keep them," I said. Evan nodded. Outside, Caleb was buckling Lily into the car. Through the window, I saw him pause before closing the door. He said something to her. She nodded, but she did not smile. My father's face came back then, not under fluorescent lights this time. After, walking me out of the store too gently, trying to make his shame small enough that I would not inherit it. I stood in Miller's Market with my daughter's sprinkles in a bag and decided I would not let silence become an inheritance. Harris tore the incident report from the pad. His voice had changed when he handed it to me. Not brave yet. Less certain. "I'll save the footage. You'll send a copy to me." He hesitated. I waited. Then he nodded. Marjorie said, "This neighborhood used to handle things neighbor to neighbor." I turned toward her. "No," I said. "It handled some people that way. Others got handled in public." For once, she had no polished answer ready. I left before she found one. In the car, Lily held the grocery bag on her lap. The yellow sprinkles were visible through the plastic. Caleb drove with both hands on the wheel. No tapping. None. Halfway home, Lily asked, "Can we still make cookies?" Caleb opened his mouth. Nothing came out. So I answered from the passenger seat. "Yes," I said. "We can. Do we have to give some to Mrs. Whitcomb?" The question sat between us. Caleb looked at the road. I looked at our daughter in the rearview mirror. "No," I said gently. "Not every neighbor gets a cookie." For the first time since the store, Lily almost smiled. Almost. When we turned onto Hawthorne Lane, Marjorie's white SUV was not in her driveway, but her curtains were open. And on my phone, in my folder, on Harris Miller's incident report, in Evan's frightened sentence, and in the store's reflection angle, the story had begun to move away from her hands. We made the cookies that night, not because anyone was hungry, because Caleb needed to keep one promise from the day alive. Lily stood on a chair at the kitchen counter and poured yellow sprinkles into the dough with the careful seriousness of someone performing a repair. Caleb measured vanilla. I softened butter in a glass bowl and watched my daughter watch her own hands. She moved differently after Miller's Market. Not dramatically. That would have been easier to name. She did not cry. She did not ask if Mrs. Whitcomb was bad. She did not say she was afraid to go back outside. She only hesitated before touching things. The measuring spoon, the sprinkle jar, the edge of the recipe card Elena Alvarez had given her. Small pauses, small injuries. The kind adults caused when they wanted the right to call a wound, a misunderstanding. Caleb saw it too. He was too quiet. No tapping on the counter. No jokes about secret cookie science. No pretending the oven was a spaceship. He stood beside Lily with his sleeves rolled up and his jaw set, doing everything gently enough to break my heart. When the first tray went into the oven, Lily asked, "Can I wash my hands again?" "You already did," Caleb said. "I know." He looked at me. Then he took her to the sink and turned on the warm water. After she went upstairs, leaving 2 cookies on a plate for breakfast because she said they would taste more like home tomorrow. Caleb stood in the kitchen, staring at the receipt from Miller's Market. I almost told her not to touch anything anymore, he said. I was folding the incident report into my folder. I stopped. At the store, he said, when we got in the car. I almost said, next time, keep your hands in your pockets. His voice thinned on the last word. That's what she wanted, I said. He nodded once, but his face did not lift. I know. He looked toward the stairs. I worked all these years so she could have more room. Then one woman made me almost teach my child to make herself smaller. That was the moment the story changed for me. Not when Marjorie accused Lily. Not when the camera caught her hand. Then, because accusation had entered our house and tried to become parenting. I opened my folder again. Then, we don't let it stop at Lily being cleared. Caleb looked at the papers. What are you going to do? Find out how many times she's done this. The next morning, Harris Miller sent the footage. Not with an apology, with a short email that read, "Per your request, attached are preserved clips related to the incident of Monday afternoon." Incident. A clean word. A word that did not hold Lily's bent shopping list or Caleb's hand on her shoulder. But the clips were attached. So was a scan of the report. Item alleged, yellow ribbon. Outcome, footage showed minor returned item to shelf. Additional review, possible unrelated movement near battery display by reporting customer. Reporting customer. Marjorie had become a category. I printed it anyway. Then I watched the footage again. Not the part with Lily. I knew that part by heart, and hated that I knew it. I watched Marjorie, the way she entered the aisle after Caleb, the way she moved the ribbon closer, the way her left hand opened the tote without looking down, the way she spoke to Harris before he had checked a single shelf. It was not clumsy. That mattered. Bad people in stories often act like bad people. In life, some of them act like people who have practiced being trusted. At 10:15, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. "Mrs. Brooks," a young voice said. "Yes, it's Evan, from Miller's." I looked toward the front window. Marjorie's curtains were open across the street. "Are you all right?" I asked. There was a pause. That was when I knew he was not. "I shouldn't be calling you." "Then why are you?" Another pause. "Because I saw your daughter's face." I sat down at the kitchen table. Evan spoke quickly after that, as if speed could get the truth out before fear caught it. He said small things had been going missing for months. Lip balm, batteries, greeting cards, ribbon, little flashlights from the hardware rack, charity raffle envelopes, a kitchen timer shaped like a rooster. Nothing expensive enough for Harris to call police. Nothing large enough to offend a regular customer. "And always, when Mrs. Whitcomb came in?" I asked. "Not always," he said. Then softer. "Enough. Do you have proof?" "Inventory logs. Can you access them? I can print discrepancy reports." Harris knows. He doesn't want this getting bigger. Of course he didn't. Systems rarely feared lies, until the correction became inconvenient. "Evan," I said, "don't take anything you're not allowed to take." "I won't. And don't put yourself alone with her," he breathed out. "She came in this morning." My hand tightened around the phone. "What happened?" She asked if I still liked my job. The kitchen went very still. I wrote that down. Not because it was evidence enough, but because intimidation had a rhythm, and I had learned to document rhythm before it became impact. "Send nothing from the store system unless you're allowed," I said. "But write down what you remember. Dates, items, who was working, anything." I should have said something before. "Yes," I said. He went silent. Then I added, "But before is gone. Start now." After we hung up, I opened the neighborhood app. Marjorie had posted a photo from a charity table. "Thank you to everyone supporting our community pantry. Hawthorne Lane takes care of its own." In the photo, She stood beside 3 donation baskets. Her smile was back in place. Her tote hung from her left arm. On the table were canned goods, folded scarves, children's books, and a small glass jar filled with mismatched utensils for kitchen starter kits. I zoomed in. Not enough. The image blurred, but one handle near the top of the jar had a floral curve that made my stomach tighten. I saved the photo. Then I called Elena Alvarez. She answered on the 3rd ring. Naomi? I'm sorry to bother you. You're not. I looked at the screen again. Did Darlene have a serving spoon with a floral handle? Elena was quiet. Then she said, silver-colored, not real silver, little flowers down the handle. Yes. She used it for cranberry sauce every Thanksgiving. I closed my eyes. I think it may have been taken from our sale. Marjorie? The name came too quickly. I opened my eyes. You thought of her fast. Elena sighed, not with surprise, but with old exhaustion. Years ago, at church, earrings disappeared from a rummage table. She made a fuss about teenagers coming through. Later, one of the earrings turned up in her coat pocket. She said it must have fallen in when she leaned over the table. What happened? Nothing. Of course. What always happens when people would rather keep peace with a difficult woman than defend someone easier to doubt. That sentence gave me more than confirmation. It gave me history. By afternoon, 3 more small stories had arrived. Not because I asked the neighborhood. I did not post, I did not accuse. I only spoke to Elena, and Elena spoke to people who had been holding quiet things for too long. A retired teacher told her a packet of thank you cards vanished from a school fundraiser after Marjorie complained about outsiders near the table. A young mother remembered losing 2 gift cards at a coat drive Marjorie organized. A man from the hardware shop said small batteries and hooks were always off when certain committee ladies came through. But no one wanted to name anyone without video. Small things. Always small things. A spoon, a ribbon, a battery pack, a child's dignity. By evening, Evan sent me a photograph of his own handwritten list. Not store records, his memory, dates, items, shifts, Marjorie present. At the bottom, he had written, I am not proud I stayed quiet. I stared at that line longer than the list. Then I printed it. Caleb came in from the porch with Lily's yellow teacup in his hand. She had left it outside after using it to hold chalk. She wants to know if she can still do a lemonade stand someday, he said. His voice tried to be normal. It failed. What did you tell her? He set the cup on the table. I told her we'd talk to Mummy. I almost smiled. Almost. Caleb sat across from me and looked at the papers spread between us. This is bigger than us. Yes. I hate that. I know. He touched the printed still from the store footage. The one where Marjorie's hand blurred toward the tote. If we push this, they'll say we're bringing trouble. They already brought it. He nodded. But the man who had smiled all the way to Hawthorne Lane looked tired in a way sleep would not solve. What if this house never feels like home? He asked. I looked at the yellow teacup between us. Chipped, bright. Still here? Then we make it tell the truth until it does. Before he could answer, my phone lit up. HOA notification. My stomach knew before my eyes did. Formal complaint submitted regarding hostile conduct, harassment of long-term residents, and improper public accusations following neighborhood incident. Attached statement from Marjorie Whitcomb. Caleb read over my shoulder. Neither of us spoke. Across the street, Marjorie's porch light turned on. She stepped outside in a cream cardigan, broad and still beneath the yellow glow, her tote hanging from her left arm like a badge. She looked toward our house, not hiding, not ashamed, waiting. I took a screenshot of the complaint, then another photo through the window, time-stamped. Caleb watched me do it. This time, he did not ask if I was worried. He knew. I was careful. There is a difference. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 7, not called a hearing, not called an investigation. Hawthorne Lane did not like ugly words when polished ones were available. The email from the HOA said, "Community clarification meeting regarding recent neighborhood concerns." Clarification, that was another clean word. It sounded like someone had misplaced a rule book, not like a woman had tried to turn my daughter's pockets into public property. Caleb read the email twice at the kitchen table. "They really made it sound like weather," he said. Lily sat on the floor with her crayons, drawing the house again. The porch was too big in every picture now. The yellow teacup sat on the top step, larger than the front door. "Are we in trouble?" she asked. "No," Caleb said too quickly. She looked at him. Children know when speed is not the same as truth. I knelt beside her. Some grown-ups need to talk about what happened. "Because of Mrs. Whitcomb?" "Yes." "Do I have to go?" I looked at Caleb, then back at her. "No. Mrs. Alvarez is going to stay with you here and make cookies." Lily's shoulders dropped. That was the answer I needed. Not brave. Relieved. A child should not have to be brave for adults who failed her. The Hawthorne community room sat beside the tennis courts, attached to the same building where HOA files were kept and holiday wreaths were stored. It had beige walls, folding chairs, a coffee urn, and a long table at the front where people could pretend discomfort was procedure. By the time Caleb and I arrived, half the room was already full. Neighbors who had watched from mailboxes, neighbors who had liked Marjorie's post, neighbors who had said nothing at the store because silence had felt cheaper. They looked at us when we entered, then looked away. Marjorie Whitcomb sat in the front row. Of course she did. She wore a cream cardigan over a pale blouse, her blonde grey bob sprayed into place. Her broad body settled squarely in the chair, as if she had been poured into the room and allowed to harden there. Her canvas tote sat at her feet, not hanging open now, closed, folded, controlled. Her left hand rested on top of it. The rings were still tight. At the table in front sat Paula Grant, the HOA chair, thin, neat, silver-framed glasses, pen aligned perfectly with a yellow legal pad. Beside her sat Harris Miller, looking as though he had slept badly. Evan stood near the side wall, hands folded in front of his apron, even though he was not at work. Elena Alvarez sat in the second row. When she saw me, she nodded once. Small, solid. Paula tapped the microphone, though the room was too small to need one. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to address recent concerns in a neighborly, respectful manner." Marjorie lowered her eyes at the word respectful. "A performance of injury." Caleb leaned slightly toward me. "She's good," he whispered. "She's practiced," I said. Paula continued. "Mrs. Whitcomb filed a complaint, alleging harassment following a misunderstanding at Miller's Market, and an earlier matter involving items from the former Alvarez property. There it was. In one sentence, my daughter became a misunderstanding, and our porch became an earlier matter. I placed my folder on my lap. Not open yet. Marjorie stood before Paula invited her to. "I'll be brief," she said. She would not be. "I have lived on Hawthorne Lane for 22 years. I have served on the garden committee, the safety committee, the winter coat drive, the school pantry, and the neighborhood watch. I care about this community." People nodded. Not all. Enough. Marjorie turned slightly, so the room could see her profile. Soft cheeks, careful chin, a woman arranging herself into credibility. "When new residents arrive, we welcome them. But welcome does not mean we ignore concerns." I asked fair questions about a garage sale involving belongings from a deceased neighbor. Days later, I saw a child acting suspiciously in a store. I raised a concern. That concern has now been twisted into an attack on me. She put one hand to her chest. I am being painted as some sort of criminal for trying to protect standards. Standards. The word sat exactly where she wanted it, between race and politeness. Paula looked at me. "Mrs. Brooks, would you like to respond?" I stood. Caleb's hand brushed mine before I moved. not stopping me, steadying me. Yes, I said, but I'm not going to respond to feelings first. I'm going to respond to sequence. A few people shifted. Sequence was not dramatic. That was why I trusted it. I opened the folder. First, the items at our garage sale were left by the previous owner's family. Here is the written note. I placed a copy on Paula's table. Elena stood. My sister Darlene wrote that note, she said. The room turned. Elena did not raise her voice. She wanted anything left in the kitchen or garage to be used, donated, sold, or loved by the new family. That was her wish. Marjorie did not look at her. Paula wrote something down, I continued. Second, before the garage sale, I photographed the items on our tables, including a silverware bundle with a small floral serving spoon. I placed the photo down. After Mrs. Whitcomb left our sale, that spoon was missing. Marjorie gave a sharp laugh. Surely we are not here about a spoon. No, I said. We are here about what people are allowed to do with suspicion. The room quieted. I placed the next page down. Third, on Sunday, Mrs. Whitcomb posted on the community board implying our family was selling items that may not belong to us. Later, she added that children should learn respect for what belongs to others. A woman in the third row looked down at her phone. Maybe she had liked that comment. Maybe she had forgotten. Screenshots help memory become less convenient. Marjorie lifted her chin. I never named your family. You did not need to. That was the point. Paula's pen stopped. I let the silence stay for one breath. Then I placed the Miller's Market incident report on the table. Fourth, on Monday, Mrs. Whitcomb accused my daughter of hiding an item in Miller's Market. I raised a concern, Marjorie said. You accused a child without naming a missing item. Harris closed his eyes. I looked at him. Mr. Miller, does your report say the item alleged was yellow ribbon? He cleared his throat. Yes. Does your camera show my daughter returned the yellow ribbon to the shelf? Yes. Was any yellow ribbon missing? No. The answers landed harder because they were short. Marjorie's hand tightened over the tote. I saw Paula notice it. Good. Fifth, I said. The second camera angle showed Mrs. Whitcomb's hand moving from the battery display toward her tote in the same aisle. Marjorie stood straighter. That footage proves nothing. I agree it does not prove everything. That is why there is more. Evan looked at the floor. I did not call on him yet. A witness forced too early can become another casualty. I placed Evan's handwritten list on the table. This is a list of small items that went missing during shifts when Mrs. Whitcomb was present. It was written by an employee who had been afraid to speak. Paula looked toward Evan. Is this yours? Evan's throat moved. Yes, ma'am. Marjorie turned on him. Young man, you should be very careful. Caleb stood. Not fast. Just enough. Don't threaten him. The room felt the change. Marjorie saw the opening and tried to use it. There. That tone. This is exactly what I mean by hostility. Caleb's voice stayed even. You are not going to use my size or my voice to scare this room away from what you did. That stopped her. Not completely, but enough. Evan looked up. I saw things, he said. The words came out rough. I saw her put small things in her tote before. I didn't say anything because she was Mrs. Whitcomb, and I was just the kid at the register. Harris flinched. Evan looked at him. And because every time I mentioned missing items, I was told not to accuse regulars without proof. The room turned to Harris. He sat very still. Paula asked, Mr. Miller, is that true? Harris rubbed both hands over his face. Yes. The word cost him, but not as much as silence had cost my daughter. Marjorie was breathing harder now. This is outrageous. I have donated more to this community than most people in this room. Elena's voice came from the second row. Donation does not make theft charity. That sentence moved through the room like a match struck in a dark cabinet. Someone whispered. Marjorie's face flushed. Elena opened her purse and removed a small plastic bag. Inside was the floral serving spoon. I did not know she had it. My breath caught. Elena held it up. This was in one of the pantry donation baskets Marjorie dropped off Tuesday morning. I recognized it because Darlene used it every Thanksgiving. It was on the Brooks family's sale table Saturday before Marjorie visited. Marjorie stood. That is insane. That spoon could have come from anywhere. It could have, Elena said, but it didn't. She placed the bag on Paula's table. Paula looked at the spoon, then at the photo, then at Marjorie. For the first time, the HOA chair had no immediate procedural sentence ready. That was how I knew truth had finally reached the furniture of the room. Marjorie grabbed her tote strap. I will not sit here and be humiliated. The words struck me strangely. Humiliated. Only now did she recognize the feeling. Not when Lily stood in a store with adults looking at her pockets, not when Caleb had to choose every word like the wrong syllable could endanger him, not when I watched my daughter wonder whether touching a ribbon made her wrong. Only now, when the room looked at Marjorie the way she had taught it to look at us. I closed my folder, almost. Then I remembered Caleb's face in the kitchen, the thing he had almost taught our daughter. I looked at Paula. We are not asking for sympathy. We are asking for correction. Paula straightened. What kind of correction? Harris looked at the floor. Marjorie looked at the door. The neighbors looked at me like they had finally realized I had not come to ask permission to be hurt. One, I said, a public written correction on the community board naming the false implication against our family. Marjorie opened her mouth. Paula held up a hand. For once, not toward me. Two, I continued, Miller's Market needs a policy that no child is publicly searched or asked to empty pockets without a guardian, a named missing item, and camera review. Harris nodded once. Small, real. 3. HOA complaints should require evidence before public posts or coded warnings about residents are allowed to spread. A few people shifted at coded. Good, let them carry the word home. 4. Staff who report theft by influential customers should not be punished for naming what they saw. Evan looked down again, but this time his shoulders moved, like he had breathed for the first time all night. Paula wrote. Marjorie's voice was lower now. You've made your point. No, Caleb said. Everyone turned to him. He had not wanted the room. I knew that. Caleb was not a man who enjoyed public pain. He was the kind of man who would fix a stranger's porch step and leave before being thanked. But he stood there now because something had reached the part of him that built homes out of effort. You almost made me tell my daughter not to touch anything in her own neighborhood, he said. No one moved. That's what you almost took. Not a spoon, not batteries. You almost made me teach my child that being safe means being smaller. His voice did not break. That made it worse. Marjorie looked away first. Then the woman who had stood at the mailbox during our garage sale began to cry silently into a tissue. I did not know what she was crying for. Guilt, maybe. Recognition. The inconvenience of seeing herself. Paula folded her hands. This board will issue a formal correction tonight, she said. Mrs. Whitcomb will be removed from the safety committee pending review. Miller's Market will submit written policy changes before the next monthly meeting, and the community board post will be locked until a correction is placed above it. Marjorie stared at her. You can't be serious. Paula looked tired suddenly. I should have been serious sooner. That was the first honest thing she had said. The meeting did not end with applause. Good. Applause would have made it too easy for the room to forgive itself. People stood slowly. Chairs folded. Coffee went cold in paper cups. Neighbors avoided Marjorie now with the same caution they had once aimed at us. I did not enjoy that. I noticed it. There is a difference. Evan approached Caleb first. I'm sorry, he said. Caleb looked at him for a long second, then nodded. Be braver earlier next time. Evan swallowed. Yes, sir. Harris came next, holding his apron in one hand, though he was not wearing it. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, "I failed your family. I waited." He looked at Caleb. "And I failed your daughter. That mattered. Not enough, but it mattered." "We'll see what you change," I said. He accepted that because it was all he had earned. Elena touched my arm on her way out. "Darlene would have liked you," she said. For some reason, that nearly undid me. Marjorie was the last to leave. She walked past us with her tote clutched against her side, her face composed but emptied of audience. At the door, she paused. "I hope you're satisfied." I looked at her hand on the strap, then at her eyes. "I hope you learn the difference between being embarrassed and being harmed." She had no answer. This time, no one rushed to give her one. Outside, the night smelled like cut grass and tennis court dust. Caleb and I walked to the car without speaking. Halfway there, he reached for my hand. His palm was rough, warm, tired. "We still making this home?" he asked. I looked across the parking lot toward Hawthorne Lane, where porch lights glowed behind neat windows and stories waited to be corrected. "Yes," I said, but not quietly. He nodded. For the first time all week, his fingers tapped once against mine. Only once, but enough. The correction appeared on the community board at 9:42 that night. Not early enough, but it appeared. Formal correction regarding prior posts and comments. The HOA board recognizes that recent public comments created a false impression regarding the Brooks family, their lawful possession of household items left by the previous owner's family, and an incident involving their minor child at Miller's Market. The board confirms that the Brooks family had permission to sell or keep the items left at the property. The board also confirms that the child was cleared by store footage and should not have been publicly suspected or discussed. It was not warm, it was not beautiful, it was not what Lily deserved, but it was public. That mattered. For the first time since we arrived on Hawthorne Lane, the truth stood where the rumor had stood. I took a screenshot before anyone could edit courage into something softer. Caleb read it over my shoulder. They didn't say Marjorie lied. No. They didn't say they believed her too fast. No. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "But they said Lily was cleared." "Yes." His shoulders dropped a little. Not relief exactly. Relief is lighter. This was more like a man setting down a box he had been carrying too long and realizing his hands still hurt. Upstairs, Lily was asleep with the yellow teacup on her nightstand. She had placed one of Darlene's recipe cards under it like a coaster. The cookie recipe, the one with a butter stain in the corner, and handwriting that leaned gently to the right. Before bed, she had asked if the store was still mad at her. Caleb had gone still. I had sat beside her and said, "No, baby, the store was wrong." She had looked at me with the seriousness of a child deciding whether to trust the world again. Do stores know when they're wrong? Sometimes people inside them have to learn. Did they learn? I had thought of Harris's face in the community room, Evan's trembling hands, Paula's pen finally writing what should have been obvious, Marjorie's tote clutched against her side. They started, I said. That was the most honest answer I could give her. The next morning, Miller's Market taped a printed notice beside the register. Caleb saw it first. He went alone. Not because we needed anything, because some places must be entered again before they can stop being places you survived. The notice read, "Customer Incident Policy Update. No minor may be questioned, searched, or asked to empty pockets or bags based on a customer report without a parent or guardian present. A clearly identified missing item, manager documentation, and camera review where available. All suspected theft reports must be documented before action is taken. All customers and employees are subject to the same evidence standards." Caleb took a picture. He sent it to me without words. Then, a minute later, another message came. "Evan's still working. I stared at that one longer. Harris had not fired him. That did not make Harris brave. But it meant the first correction had held. Later, Harris sent a formal apology by email. Not perfect, but signed. It named Lily. It named Caleb. It named me. It did not hide behind any offense caused. Mrs. Brooks, Miller's Market failed your daughter and your family by permitting an accusation to move forward without a named missing item or sufficient evidence. We are implementing written policy changes and staff training immediately. Evan Brooks, no relation, he added awkwardly in a parenthetical, will be trained as assistant shift lead and will assist with inventory reporting procedures going forward. I read that line twice. Assistant shift lead, a small title, a real consequence. People who finally tell the truth should not always have to pay for being late. Sometimes they should be given enough ground to stand earlier next time. Marjorie Whitcomb did not apologize. Not to us, not to Lily, not to the room. The HOA removed her from the safety committee pending review. Miller's Market issued her a written ban for 6 months, while restitution was handled for documented missing items. The hardware shop followed with its own notice after reviewing old inventory discrepancies. The community pantry quietly removed her from donation handling. Quietly. That was how institutions like to correct embarrassment, but not everything stayed quiet. Elena made sure of that. She posted one photograph on the community board, Darlene's recipe card beside the floral serving spoon, now sealed in a small evidence bag on Paula's table. Her caption was only one sentence. Darlene believed a house should begin light. Let us not make new neighbors carry what we refuse to see. No one argued under that post. Not publicly. For 3 days, Hawthorne Lane became careful around us. Too careful. People waved too early, smiled too widely. Called across the street about weather, as if weather had been waiting all week to heal racism, shame, gossip, and theft. The woman from the mailbox brought over banana bread and said, "I should have said something." She looked at Caleb when she said it, then at me, then at the porch. I took the bread. "Next time," I said. Her face changed. She had wanted forgiveness. I gave her instruction. That was kinder than pretending. Paula Grant came by on Friday with a new HOA packet. Not the old one, a revised one. Clear garage sale rules, complaint process, evidence requirements before public posts about residents. A written standard that vague accusations involving children, property, safety, or crime would be removed until verified. At the back was a new page titled, "Welcome Procedure for New Residents." Caleb read that line 3 times. Then he laughed once. Not happily, not bitterly. Just at the strange math of it. One family's pain becoming a form another family might one day receive in peace. Paula stood on our porch with her folder held against her ribs. "I should have stopped the first post," she said. "Yes," I said. She nodded. No defense. Good. We're changing moderation access. Marjorie won't have admin privileges. She had admin privileges? Paula looked embarrassed. She volunteered. People like Marjorie often do. That one landed. Paula accepted it. Before she left, Lily came outside holding the yellow teacup. Paula looked at it. "That's pretty," she said. Lily held it closer, not afraid exactly, but remembering. "It's mine." Paula's face softened in a way that did not ask to be praised. "Yes," she said, "it is." That was the first thing she said to my daughter that I liked. Saturday morning came 1 week after the porch sale. The tables were gone. The price stickers were gone. The brass lamp had sold to the young couple from 2 streets over. The blue mixing bowl stayed with us because Caleb said it looked good in our kitchen. The floral spoon was returned by Paula in a small envelope with an apology note from the board. Not from Marjorie. I washed it. Not because we needed it, because Darlene had used it for cranberry sauce, and some things deserved to come back clean. Lily did not want to keep it. That one makes people talk weird, she said. So Elena took it home. That felt right. The yellow teacup stayed. At breakfast, Lily placed it on the table between us. I don't want it to be a cash cup anymore. Caleb looked at me. What should it be? He asked. Lily considered this with great seriousness. A plant cup. A planter, I said. A planter cup. So Caleb found a small bag of soil in the garage, and Lily chose basil seeds from a packet Elena had left with the recipe cards. We carried everything to the porch, because some healing needed witnesses, even if the only witnesses were a maple tree, 2 chairs, and a street still learning what to do with itself. Lily filled the cup halfway with soil. Her fingers moved carefully, but they did not hesitate as much. That was something. Caleb held the seed packet. Not too many, I warned. He looked offended. I am a professional. You killed the apartment parsley. That plant lacked commitment. Lily giggled. The sound was small, then bigger. Caleb looked at me over her head. There he was again. Not the same as the man who had smiled all the way to Hawthorne Lane. Something had changed. His joy was no longer untouched. But maybe untouched joy was not the only kind worth having. Maybe some joy became stronger after it learned the cost of staying. Across the street, Marjorie's curtains were closed. Her SUV was gone. No one had seen her since the community room, except once, when she drove past without slowing down, broad face forward, tote absent from the passenger seat. I did not mistake her absence for transformation. Some people do not change when they are exposed. They only lose access. For now, access was enough. Lily pressed 3 basil seeds into the soil. Will it grow? If we water it, Caleb said, and give it sun, I added. And don't let people touch it, Lily said. Caleb's hand paused. I touched his wrist under the table. Or, I said, we teach people to ask first. Lily thought about that, then nodded. The front door opened behind us. Mrs. Alvarez stepped onto the porch, holding a small envelope. I brought something, she said. Inside was an old photograph. Darlene Alvarez stood on the same porch 20 years earlier, younger, laughing, holding a tray of cookies. On the porch rail beside her sat a row of mismatched cups with little plants growing in them. Lily stared. She made plant cups too. Elena smiled. She did. Caleb took the photo gently. For a moment, the house felt less like a thing we had purchased and more like a story we had been allowed to continue. Elena looked down at Lily. My sister would have loved seeing basil there. Lily touched the rim of the yellow cup. She can. No one corrected her. Some truths are allowed to be bigger than logic. By afternoon, Caleb had rehung the porch swing bracket he had been avoiding because the wood needed reinforcing. He worked slowly, checking every screw twice. Lily drew chalk flowers along the top step. I sat with the revised HOA packet in my lap, reading the new complaint rules line by line. Not because I wanted to live suspiciously, because peace without structure was just a mood, and moods changed when people like Marjorie entered the room. A car slowed near the curb. I looked up. For 1 second, my body prepared itself. But it was a new family, a young couple with a toddler in the back seat, looking at the house for sale, 3 doors down. The woman driving glanced nervously at the street, at the lawns, at us on the porch. She was Asian. Her husband beside her was white. The toddler had 1 shoe off and pressed against the window. Caleb lifted his hand. A simple wave. The woman hesitated, then waved back. Lily stood. Can I give them cookies if they move here? Caleb looked at me. This time, I did not see fear in his face first. I saw the question underneath everything we had survived. Can we still be open? I looked at the yellow teacup on the porch rail, soil dark inside it, 3 basil seeds hidden where no one could see whether they had begun yet. Yes, I said. If they move here, we'll bring cookies. Lily smiled. Caleb's fingers tapped once against the porch arm, then again, a rhythm returning. The sun lowered behind Hawthorne Lane, turning the windows gold. Across the street, Marjorie's curtains stayed closed. On our porch, the yellow cup sat in the light, chipped at the base, cracked near the rim, holding soil instead of coins. It was still not perfect. That was not the point. It was still here. So were we. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. What would you have done if someone accused your child in public? And if you believe every family deserves dignity, truth, and a place to call home, subscribe for more emotional stories like this.